and I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:01 by my watch. At this point in time, I would like to, I need to ask the speakers, as I'm doing, to speak very closely into this mic so that the people that are in the back or still in the lobby area will be able to hear that. At this particular point in time, I would like to call on the Reverend Dr. Joe Ellison, Jr., who is the RPV Director of African American Engagement, for the purposes of an invocation. Reverend Ellison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Every head bowed, eye closed.
Thank you, Reverend Ellison, for that invocation. At this point in time, I would call on the Three Chop District Supervisor, Dave Cackley, the longest serving, I believe, current member of the board with 24 years, almost 25. 34. Boy, I can't count, and I go back a long way. For the purposes of leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I'll again call on Delegate Massey for the purposes of reading the Republican Creed.
Yes. Read it loud and proud, huh?
And I want, when I read this creed, think about what's going on, contrast this with what's going on in Washington, D.C. We believe that the free enterprise system is the most productive supplier of human needs and economic justice.
Amen.
That all individuals are entitled to equal rights, justice, and opportunities, and should assume their responsibilities as citizens in a free society. Here's a big one. That fiscal responsibility and budgetary restraints must be exercised at all levels of government, borrowing $430 million an hour. That the federal government must preserve individual liberty by observing constitutional limitations. That peace is best preserved through a strong national defense. Tell Vladimir Putin that. That faith in God is recognized by our founding fathers as essential to the moral fiber of the nation. Thank you.
At this point in the meeting, the chair would call for a motion to dispense with the reading of the mass meeting call. Is there a motion?
Motion.
A second? Second. All in favor of dispensing with the reading of the call to the meeting, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays, like sign? All right, thank you. According to the party plan.
I'd like to nominate Russ Moulton as the temporary chair of this meeting.
I will second that motion.
That is not the order of, at this point in time. I have not called for that portion of the meeting.
Motion on the floor.
That motion was out of order at this point. All right, the next order of business at a mass meeting is the election of the temporary chair. At this time, the chair recognizes Delegate John O'Bannon for the purposes of a nomination.
I want to nominate Russ Moulton as temporary chair.
Second.
The chair recognizes Dr. O'Bannon for the purposes of a nomination.
I'd like to nominate Don Boswell as temporary chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, under Robert's Rules of Order, the chair is allowed to recognize the first nomination. So now we will have a vote. All those that are in favor of Don Boswell for chair can raise your hand or signify by saying aye as well. We'll see what the House is.
Aye.
All opposed? Like
No! Division!
All right, what we're going to do is have everyone count hands. I'd like to call on the sergeant at arms to assist in counting the hands. All those that are in favor of electing Don Boswell as the temporary chair, please raise your hand. All right. That's 164 that was counted. If those that are the nays, if you would please raise your hand and hold that.
Count, baby.
Count them all.
My hands raised.
11, 12. Put them down there and count. You already counted it. Yeah.
We come up with 170 votes nay. So, recognize gentlemen for the purposes of the nomination of a
Chairman,
chair.
I recommend to nominate Russ Moulton as temporary chair of this meeting.
Second.
No calls for division.
All right, all those in favor of Mr. Russ Moulton as the temporary chair of the meeting, please raise your hand. Keep your hands. Again, we would ask people in the back not to move.
I didn't get counted. No one counted.
People weren't counted back here.
No one announced that you're counting. I just
14, 15. Doesn't matter what. 17.
All right, there are 178 aye votes. Those that are opposed, raise your hand. Hold till we do the count. All right, the nays are 173. Mr. Russ Moulton is elected the temporary chair.
Appreciate your patience and your cooperation. I pledge to you to run an extremely fair meeting to make sure that everyone is heard, and an efficient meeting so that we can try to get everyone back home to their families. As temporary chair of this mass meeting, I'd like to make some appointments, please. I'd like to ask Dale Taylor to serve as temporary secretary of this mass meeting. Dale, if you'd please come up here, please. Craig, I'd like to ask you to serve as parliamentarian, please, if you would, under Robert's rules. I'd like to appoint temporary rules committee Mr. Dana Smith and Mr. Craig Henke to serve on the rules committee. I'd like to ask Mr. Boswell if he'd provide me another name to serve on the rules committee. And I'll make that appointment. On the credentials committee, I'd like to appoint Ms. Deb Giffen as the chair of the credentials committee. Joining her, Nancy Godfrey on credentials. And again, Mr. Chairman, if you would give me a recommendation for credentials. Okay. Francis Boswell, if you would agree also to serve on credentials, we'd greatly appreciate it. Mr. Bill Janis. Mr. Janis, fellow Naval Academy graduate, if you would agree to serve on rules, sir. VMI. I walked right into that. for nominations, committee chairperson, I'd like to ask Ms. Nancy Smith, joined by Anita Heil, and I'm sorry, and Matt Wells, if he'd also serve on the nominations committee. For the resolutions committee chair, I would like to ask Mark Heil if he would serve as chairman of that committee, also with Anita Heil. And is there a recommendation for resolution? Lynn, would you have a recommendation for resolution? Chris Nolan for resolution. Thank you very much. If there are no objections until our rules are established, we'll have Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised 11th edition, be in effect. I'd now like to ask the temporary committees if they would please temporarily recess up here in the front.
Russ, they can go to those doors right there and just right here.
Thank you, Linwood. Wonderful suggestion.
Hey, Linwood, once they get in, they can't get back out.
Leave the rules committee in there. Some of you can come over here if another committee wants to go through this door right here.
Hey, but please don't open the outside door. It'll set off alarms.
We don't want the fire marshal coming. There's more room in this one over here. One committee could go through there. It's kind of small. This one.
The Rules Committee is almost cooked a set of rules for us. It's very fair. At this time right now, I'd like to ask the candidates for 7th District Congress if they would please speak. I'd like to first ask challenger David Bratt if he'd come up here and say a few words. And then is there a representative from Eric Cantor's campaign here?
Good. I'm Dave Bratt. I'm originally from Michigan, went to a small liberal arts school. I teach at Randolph-Macon, very similar schools. I went from college, worked at Arthur Andersen for a couple of years in their Detroit and Chicago offices in information consulting. Was called from business to Princeton Theological Seminary. The intent there was to teach undergrad students philosophy, ethics, and theology, systematic theology. But while I was in seminary, I caught the political bug. I noticed a lot of the minister friends were well-intentioned folks, but they did not understand the laws of supply and demand. And so I felt a unique calling to maybe blend those two things together. And ever since, I've tried to commit my life to integrating economics and ethics together. So while I was in seminary, I went to Wesley Seminary, which butts up against American University, applied to get my PhD in economics from the American University. And most importantly, up there I met my wife Laura and completed my PhD. We moved back down here to Randolph-Macon. I've been there for 18 years teaching economics and ethics. And in the last 6 years, I've served under 2 governors on their economic board. I was recently appointed to the Board of Accountancy. I worked on the RMA board here. I've worked in the General Assembly for the past several years, mainly on education issues, trying to provide choice for kids with disabilities. And so that, in a nutshell, is who I am. Why am I running? I'm running because Washington, D.C. is just absolutely broken right now. What do I mean by that? First of all, the financial system is broken. The latest research on that is a book called This Time is Different by Reinhardt and Rogoff at Harvard. And usually the economy goes down in a recession and jumps back up, and this time it doesn't. And their prediction is we're down for 8 to 10 years, and so that's what it feels like. If it still feels like we're in a recession, there's good reason for that, because we're in worse than a recession. We're in a financial crisis. So the economy is broken. We're at subpar economic growth. And that's largely because members of Congress do not understand what a free market is.
That's right.
There's a big difference between being free market and pro-big business. My opponent, Eric Cantor, runs on the Chamber of Commerce agenda, point after point after point. I'll list a few of those for you. I'm running on free markets, which does not show favoritism to anyone.
All right.
The economy and the financial system, our healthcare system is broken, as many of the speakers have already pointed out. Obamacare and the lack of regard for the Constitution is crushing 17% of our economy. And most importantly of all, probably tied to the financial system, the economic system, and the healthcare system, the rule of law in this country is in question. It is under attack day by day by day. Get you all home to your families too, so I'm going to be brief, but I'm going to go through a few key points. The major points I'm running on, and I will show you a clear contrast between my campaign and Congressman Cantor. Cantor follows Chamber of Commerce and the Business Roundtable point after point after point. You can read a Wall Street Journal article by the chairman of AT&T dated January 14 if you want to see the complete outline. But basically, the Chamber's #1 goal is they want stability in Washington, D.C. Well, a lot of smart lawyers got together and wrote that. What does that mean? How does that translate? What stability in Washington, D.C. means is just kick the can down the road a few more years. Just put the debt on the kids year after year after year. It grows and grows and grows. There's no fiscal discipline. And you can say one time maybe the Democrats faked us out. But year after year after year, my opponent has been there for 14 years. We need a smarter set of lawyers up there to fight the fight and end this endless debt we're putting on the next generation. How does the Chamber's views affect other major issues? Take a look at Obamacare. Who gets to exempt themselves out of Obamacare? Congress staffers, big business, and unions, for starters. Right? Do you get exempted out of Obamacare? No. Would Obamacare have passed if big business was not exempted? No. Absolutely not. If they had to suffer under the higher costs and the increased bureaucracy and regulation, Eric Cantor would have been fighting tooth and nail to block that thing, and it never would have passed. But because big business got an exemption, Obamacare is the law of the land without a fight, and you're dealing with it right now in your everyday lives. #2, amnesty. Eric Cantor was on the Sunday shows just a few weeks ago promoting parts of amnesty for people in the 7th. Again, who wants amnesty? Big business. Why does big business want amnesty? Why does the Chamber want amnesty? Because it's cheap labor. If you put your arms like this right now and increase the labor supply curve to the right, wage rate goes down for who? For you. So big business gets cheap labor, and what do you get? Lower wages. And that's just part 1. Part 2 is who pays any of the unanticipated costs that's going to come with amnesty. Who's going to pay for education, Medicare, food stamps, Medicaid? Big business going to pay those bills, or you? You're going to pay the tab. So amnesty, people in the 7th district, I've been out to 9 counties in the city. There is 95% disapproval. I haven't met anyone that just stands up and says, I'm in favor of this. So why our majority leader in the U.S. Congress is in favor, I don't get it. Last point I'll share with you real quickly, debt ceiling increases. Some people in this crowd say, let's all be friendly, let's all get along. I'm all in favor of that. I went to seminary. I try to love everyone, even though I disagree with you. But seriously, people say, well, give Eric a shot, right? Give him another chance. Let's wait till we get the Senate in a year or two. That's correct. Let me go back and show you that record. We had the House and the Senate and the White House, and Eric Cantor voted for debt ceiling increases in 2002, 2003, 2004, 2006, and 2007. And recently, he's voted for debt ceiling increases with no concessions from President Obama on the budget. That is the record that's in place. So the debt is now at $17 trillion. The biggest number in the economic textbook right now is $127 trillion in unfunded liabilities. Go to the bottom of the U.S. debt clock and check it out. Add up Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the Bush prescription drug plan. $127 trillion. Have you heard leadership on the Republican side or Democrat side mention that number? No. If you have not heard that number, leadership is not leading. I will mention that number. I'll go to the podium, talk loudly in the mic, and share those numbers with the American people, because you need to know that. It is not fair to the next generation. That's just the unfunded portion of our liabilities, right? That's in law, and it's every single one of those programs go out to their board of trustees on Medicare, Social Security, or any of them, and they'll all tell you when they're insolvent. And it's not too long from now. Jimmy Mask was very honest in his remarks. Compare and contrast the fiscal stability and sanity of the state versus the federal government, and the federal government is out of control. So I'm asking for your vote tonight. I'm asking for your support tonight. I'd be honored to speak for you. I will represent you in your voice. And I would be honored to be your congressman in the future. And I thank you very much for having me. Let me speak.
Yeah. Thank you all. I'm Fred Gruber. I'm a candidate for 7th District Chair with the opponent of Linwood Cobb. I've never used notes before, but I want to be particularly brief tonight. I'm going to use a little cheat sheet. My campaign can be defined in 10 words. The power is in the people. You. And 4 more. We can do it. You and me and everybody. I have a plan to grow the Republican Party and to unite the district in so doing. Meet with all 10 GOP units, all 9 Tea Parties, Ladies Republican Council, Young Republicans, pro-life, pro-gun, pro-family, in a leadership council as quickly as possible after I'm elected. We will set priorities in terms of goals, and then I will take those around each of the units, discuss them, get feedback, and build everything from the bottom up. I'm sure we owe Mr. Cobb a debt of gratitude for running the administrative side of the district for 12 years, 5 additional terms unopposed, 2-year terms. It's just that I have a different vision for this district. And it is to work to unify the grassroots. Now, Linwood and I have points of disagreement and points of agreement. Excuse me, that's the trouble with notes. For example, I am the only candidate in this race that has a plan to stop our party's hemorrhaging of votes to third parties, like the Libertarian Party. Libertarians took 9.4% of the vote here in Henrico in the past election. 9.4%. As a lifelong Republican and leader of the Tea Party in Louisa, I think I know how to bring libertarians back to the GOP. That is critical for us to win elections, particularly this fall, since Robert Sarvis is unfortunately on the ballot again, this time for U.S. Senate. But there is one thing that Mr. Cobb and I strongly agree on, and that is our unified opposition to slating, to unite our party to beat the Democrats. United, we win. Divided, we fail. I urge you to join me and Mr. Cobb in electing all the pre-filed delegates tonight. Let's grow our party and unify it around the Republican principles, the creed, to win this fall's elections. By electing all our delegates tonight, we send a signal we're going forward united. I thank you very much, and I ask for your vote on May 10th.
Good evening, everybody.
Hey, Linwood.
My name's Linwood Cobb, and I'm running for re-election as the 7th District Chair. Just a little bit about me. I grew up in Lynchburg. I'm a native Virginian. Jennifer and I and the girls moved to Henrico County in 1990. So we've been a resident for 24 years. Been married. This June we will celebrate our 35th anniversary. We have 3 beautiful daughters. God blessed us. 2 of the daughters have brought son-in-laws into the family, and one of those have brought our first grandchild. 2 weeks ago we celebrated her first birthday.
Right.
We are members of River Road Presbyterian Church. I serve as an elder there, and last December I was elected treasurer, so I'm just going to have to see how that works out. The reason I got into politics, the day after Jimmy Carter was, excuse me, not that far back, Bill Clinton, the day after he was elected, I said, I've got to get off the couch and do something. So in 1992, I joined the Henrico Republican Committee. Been a member ever since. I served 2 years as its vice chairman, and I served 4 years as the chairman. After Congressman Cantor was elected to the United States Congress in 2004, I was elected chairman of the 7th District Committee. I've served 12 years. And over that 12 years, we've been very successful. We've done what we were supposed to do as district chairman and unit chairmen throughout the 7th District. We've elected Republicans. In the 7th District, every sitting member of the House of Delegates is a Republican. Every sitting senator in the state Senate is a Republican. That's a pretty good record. No other district that I know of can match that. The 7th District of Virginia produces more Republican votes than any other district across the state, barring none. In statewide races, in presidential races, we produce more Republican votes. Now, to grow the party, 8 years ago, we started the Republican Roundup. What this party lacks is young people. Look around the room. They're just a spattering here and there. Peter Farrell is one of the young guys. So we started the Roundup. It's a family-friendly, free event where there's food, a band, the blow-up thing for kids to play on. And the first year we started it, we had 1,200 people there. The last 3 years, we've had between 5,000 and 5,500 people attend. So we've been reaching out to the young families, trying to get them involved in the party. It's the single largest gathering of Republicans in the state, with the exception of a statewide convention. The other thing that we've been very successful at doing is supporting their candidates financially. Since 2009, the 7th District Committee has raised and donated nearly $1 million to Republican candidates all across Virginia. The last election cycle, we've donated and raised and donated to Republicans throughout the Commonwealth $196,500. Now, to put that into perspective, you add up, there's 10 other districts in the state. You add up everything that they donated to the candidates, and it was $17,000. We did over 10 times as much support to candidates in Virginia financially. It's a record that no other district committee can touch. Now, if you re-elect me, we're going to continue to raise money, and we're going to continue to support Republican candidates. My opponent is wrong when he thinks that being a district chair means to confront and yell at elected officials. That's not what we do. That's not what's in the party plan. What we're supposed to do is lay the groundwork, support our nominees, and help them get elected. So, with your help at the 7th District Convention, all of you that have been elected delegates, I would appreciate very much. My background, my professional background is sales, and I know that you don't get the order unless you ask for it. So, come to the 7th District Convention if you filed as a delegate, and I would humbly ask you for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. I thought I'd give you an update on what's going on down at the legislature. The governor did kind of throw us another curveball today. But let's go back just a little bit so I can give you a little prelude. We adjourned on 2 weeks ago this past Saturday on March the 8th. And when we adjourned, the governor and the Senate Democrats had taken the budget hostage. They said to us, we are not willing to pass the budget. And that's the new 2-year budget that we do every even number of years. And the budget is done. We're maybe 1/10 of 1% apart. The only reason we're that is because the Democrats did not close that gap. So I can say to you, we have a complete budget in place. We can agree on the budget and, an hour or two solve the making difference. Anyway, so Governor McCullough and the Senate Democrats and the House Democrats, because they can't do much over the House because we got a 16% majority, have taken the budget hostage, and they have said to us, we are not going to pass the budget in the state of Virginia unless you give us Medicaid expansion. Okay, so that's exactly what we've been saying to them. And remember what they've tried to do. Now, this is where we need you all's help. Because what they've gone out to you all and said, what they're saying to the press is, why wouldn't you want to take this? Saying 3 things. Why wouldn't you want to take all this free federal money? Buy private insurance for these poor needy people, which has never been done before. It's a first time thing. Especially when you can back out in 3 years. Right. Can't back out. But see, on the top line, that's a pretty compelling message. And so, I hope you all have seen my editorials in the paper. I had editorials on Friday, the 14th. You can go on my website, but I peel all those things back. The money is not free. Look, the federal government has to borrow. Hold on to your hats here 1 second. The federal government has to borrow about $430 million an hour. Every hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, just to fund itself today. And that's prior to the baby boom generation coming through. Their Social Security costs are going to increase by 70% over the next 9 years. Their Medicare and Medicaid costs are going to double over the next 9 years. It's an unsustainable path. The money's not free. They are not going to be able to meet their commitment to pay 90% of it. So that's number one. Number two, on the private insurance piece, it's never been done before. My family used to own 45 retail department stores. And, we would never roll out. Somebody came to us with a new point of sale system, and I said, well, is anybody else using the point of sale system? No. Well, we would never roll out a brand new point of sale system for 45 stores. And we'd say, okay, if you give it to me for free, I'll maybe try it in one of my stores for a period of time to see if it works. They want to roll the private option out to everybody. It's never been done. It sounds alluring to us, free market, private option. Well, that might be something we have to do. But it's never been done. And then the final thing you all said, CMS gives you a 3-year waiver. And they said, okay, so you get a 3-year waiver, so the deal's only good for 3 years. And then they take the contract up, tear it up after we got 400,000 people signed up. They throw it in the trash, and they look across the table at the federal government. They're saying, it's all brand new deal. Okay? Just for a little more information, interestingly enough, the governor brought us a new budget today. Never been seen before. He brought John O'Bannon and I. John, where's John? Join me over here, John. Come on. I'll miss something, so John did. But the governor dropped a new 2-year budget on John in these days. And guess what? He said, well, that marketplace in Virginia, I think we don't want to do that. We want to go back to expanding the in-place unsustainable Medicaid position. And I got another 104 budget amendments for you. And by the way, could you please agree to all that and do all that today? That's the kind of stuff that John and I are facing. I will tell you that we have a 68% majority in the House. The right thing to do, and I hope you've seen this, and this is the message I need you all to get, John and I need. The right thing to do is to free the budget hostage, Governor McAuliffe. Separate it from Medicaid expansion, and then we'll continue the Medicaid Innovation Reform Commission. Let the work. Okay? All right, so I'm going to give everybody in here a really good opportunity tonight. I know all of us would like to yell at Governor McAuliffe. Right? So let's yell at him. I'm going to say Governor McAuliffe, and I want you to say, free the budget hostage. And then I'm going to say Governor McAuliffe, and you say, let the work. So we all get some energy out on Governor McAuliffe instead of on each other. And so, Governor McAuliffe. Governor McAuliffe. Now, John, you got anything you want to do?
So it's real simple. He's done a pivot, a 180. He's gone back to expand Medicaid. Okay, that's the current Medicaid. That's the program that's got more than doubled in 10 years and already takes up 22% of the state budget. So it's unsustainable the way it is. He wants to expand it. Real simple. Paul is I want to tell him this officer of the station. Where? So, this is probably the most important thing that we can do between now and next year. Ed Gillespie is running against Mark Warner, who was the vote for Obamacare. Okay? So if you want to get together and let's go after somebody, let's get behind Ed Gillespie and let's get rid of Mark Warner. Yeah.
And then lastly, while I've got the mic, I'm going to take elected officials' privilege. I bet you John O'Bannon and I would agree with everybody in this room at least 80, if not 90% of the time. It is breaking my heart that I find myself here tonight getting ready to probably have, a really unpleasant situation with people that I agree with 80 or 90% of the time. If we let those differences separate us, we are doing our children and our grandchildren a great disservice. Because we in this room who agree 80 and 90%, we are not the enemies. We are brothers in conservatism. So I hope when we leave here tonight, even if we have some significant differences of opinion, we can really come together and agree to disagree without being disagreeable and focus on those folks who we disagree with 90% of the time and are trying to leave us, our children. And that's why, look, I tell you what, I got plenty of money. And I got a great place that I could be with my wife. It's a beautiful place. Only reason I'm serving the state legislature is because the country that we're getting ready to leave our children and our grandchildren is breaking my heart. Okay? So when we leave here tonight, I hope we can all come to the conclusion that, hey, we should disagree without being disagreeable and have a family difference of opinion and focus on those who are really against us 80 or 90% of the time. That's what we need to do, and I would hopefully everybody would take a deep breath, say a little prayer, and let's hope we can leave here that way tonight. Thank you.
Committee report, please.
Good evening. For the credentialing for the 7th District, our totals were 328 total delegates. For the 3rd District, our total were 44.
That is not delegates, but
not delegates.
328
present.
Total qualified to vote in the 7th District at this mass meeting, and 44 qualified to vote in the 3rd District have been right.
Thank you for correcting
No
me.
problem. No problem.
I got the numbers right.
You did. Thank you. Do I hear any discussion on the Credentials Committee report? Yes, Linwood.
The number for 7th District was what?
328.
And we voted 178 and 167. Oh, that's the answer. I'm sorry. Add 3rd district into that.
That's correct.
Okay. Not a problem. All right.
And he thought he had one.
Very good. Any other discussion on the Credentials Committee report?
No.
Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the Credentials Committee report say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The Credentials Committee report is approved. Is the Rules Committee ready to give a report? Dana, please come to the podium.
Mr. Chairman, I have proposed that we adopt these rules at this mass meeting. The Rules Committee has met and respectfully submits the following report on rules that recognizes Mr. Bill Janis for 3 amendments.
So I understand what you have in your hands right now is the rules report. However, it's subject to some changes that the committee has agreed to that Bill Janis is going to present. And I'm sorry there was only 100 copies of the rules. If anyone does not have a copy of the rules and would like to see it, we'll give you time to get it and read it. Mr. Janis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the meeting. If you have a copy of the written rules in front of you, I'm going to offer 3 amendments. I'm going to ask the mass meeting to adopt these amendments as a block. Once we've adopted these amendments, then I'm going to make a motion that we adopt the Rules Committee report as amended. And then we get a second, and we'll vote on it. Okay, so you may or may not have the written rules. I'm going to explain to any of y'all that do the proposed amendments. So the first rule amendment would be at number 3, where it says voting. After the word voice, strike or standing vote, and insert the following. Vote or by show of hands on motion for division. Okay? Explanation of that is, the way the rules are written, if you have a written copy in front of you, it says that we can vote either by voice or by standing votes. I think more of y'all are standing than are sitting in here right now, so that would get confusing and make for a longer meeting. So this amendment is intended to allow us on a motion for division to vote by show of hands, which is the rule we've already been applying so far in this meeting. So I don't think it's unreasonable. That's my first proposed amendment. The second proposed amendment is at paragraph 5, resolutions. I really enjoy these meetings. I enjoy them a lot now that I'm no longer an elected official than I did before. But I don't want to be here till midnight. I don't think any of y'all want to be here till midnight either. So we are making an amendment. We're recommending we strike paragraph 5, which would provide for resolutions. The last amendment would be just a technical cleanup amendment, which would be to renumber all of the paragraphs accordingly after we strike resolutions. So I'll make those 3 amendments, and I would hope someone would second those 3 amendments.
Second.
All those in favor of adopting those 3 amendments as a block signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I would move, Mr. Chairman, that we adopt the report of the Committee on Rules as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Janis. Those are great suggestions, by the way. Is everyone at this point comfortable with the rules? The rules do, I understand, include a 2-minute limit for and against any motion. Therefore, under Roberts, these rules require a 2/3 vote to be adopted. Is there any objection? Do we need to read the rules, or can we proceed ahead without reading? I don't want anyone to be uncomfortable with the rules. Proceed. All right. Are we ready to vote on the rules report?
Yes.
As amended. Excuse me. Thank you. Okay, seeing no objection, all those in favor of the rules report as amended by the Rules Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, great. As per the rules, your temporary organization is now permanent and will go into high gear. Nominations Committee, are you ready to report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Only one individual properly filed for the Henrico Republican Committee Chairman, and so the Nominations Committee reports that Don Boswell, Mr. Don Boswell, is elected Chairman. Mr. Chairman, there were 328 individuals who properly filed as members of the Henrico County Committee. There were 238 individuals who properly filed for the State Convention in Roanoke. There were 416 individuals who properly filed for the 7th District Convention. and there were 26 individuals who properly filed for the 3rd District Convention. Mr. Chairman, I move that all individuals who properly filed for the aforementioned offices be elected to those offices. Is there a second? Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Cobb.
We have to separate the 3rd and the 7th because the 7th can't vote on delegates for the 3rd and the 3rd can't vote on delegates to the 7th. For the party plan.
Right.
I move we second the motion.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cobb. We had some advice from our nominations committee. We do it all at once, but we'll do as you say. I think that's appropriate. Okay, so how about we take up the portion of the nominations committee report that deals with the committee? Any objection to that? I'm sorry, that's right. So is there any objection to us taking up the election of both the committee and the state delegates for Henrico in one motion? Any objection? Seeing none. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of electing how many committee members? 328 committee members who properly pre-filed, and 238 individuals who properly pre-filed for state convention delegate from Henrico. Please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Now let's take up the portion of the nominations committee report that deals with the 7th district. And at this point, discussion and voting is only those that are entitled to vote in the 7th congressional district. The motion from the nominations committee report, or the report, is that we elect all 416 individuals who properly pre-filed for the 7th district convention.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this report for 416 7th district delegates? Lynn, was there any objection if I do this by voice vote?
No,
and go on people's honor that 3rd district people won't vote? All those in favor, all the 7th district voters here tonight, in favor of electing 416 properly pre-filed delegates to the 7th district convention, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Fantastic. Now we'll take up the portion of the nominations committee report that deals with the 3rd congressional district. The nominations committee reported 26 properly pre-filed people to be delegates to the 3rd district convention. This report will only be considered by 3rd district voters here from Henrico. Is there any discussion on this report for the 3rd district? Seeing none, let's move to a vote if there's no objection. All those in favor of electing these 26 3rd district delegates, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The report carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Is there any other business to come before this mass meeting?
Move to adjourn. Second.
Motion to adjourn, properly seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Have a nice night.